Kevin Chandler, appraiser that I'm so fond of. So Kevin and I met probably, we think 9 or 10 years ago, in a networking group, and I need to get back in a networking group because it was really good, and we shared a lot of business through that. So Kevin's been at it for a long time and has seen a lot in the market over the last 10 years. And just to give you like a sense, he does on average 300 appraisals a year. So figure that out. We're talking about 3,000 appraisals, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Almost, well, exactly about 3,000
Yeah.
over the last 10 years.
Yeah, come on in. Yeah, so anyways, seriously happy that you could be here to join us. Looking forward to what you have to offer. And of course, as always, this can be a Q&A. Kevin just usually kind of gives you like a brief overview, and then he'll do like a Q&A so we can really get some specific questions for things that we are seeing come up on a regular basis. So I'll turn it over to you.
All righty. Well, thanks for having me in the office today, guys. I appreciate it. I brought some business cards. So everybody was available today. Super slow, huh?
No, it's not slow.
I wasn't fishing for a compliment. It's super slow for me right now. And I apologize. I was losing my voice yesterday. Kind of came back pretty strong after drinking some tea last night. So
we were messaging, he's like a freaking tea. Yeah.
So but yeah, it has been slow, but as I was talking with Wes right before we jumped on the Zoom, it definitely seems to have stabilized.
Yeah.
And there's still no inventory, right? I mean, that's what I'm seeing everywhere throughout the East Bay. So
there could be somebody for me to let in.
Oh,
sorry.
All good.
It's D. Okay.
I don't necessarily have topics other than I printed out an article.
Why isn't my thing working?
And Monica said that we probably should talk about solar, which we can totally do. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I searched for an appraisal class on solar, but I couldn't find one. Full disclosure, I am working 6 days a week right now as a tax preparer because it's been so slow. So yes, my CPA that does all our books and our corporation. When I told him everything slowed down, he was like, "Come see me in February. We'll put you to work." Okay.
They're drowning right now, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They're busy. You're a glutton for punishment, like appraisal numbers and then tax numbers. No, thank you.
Like chaos.
It's definitely different, like being at the desk 6 days a week. I like being out in the field.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. I just printed out only like 3 or 4 of
That's
these,
okay, we can
but
disseminate them later.
it's just an article about how an appraiser and a building inspector were sued for wrongful death because they misidentified a smoke detector as a combo smoke and carbon monoxide.
Really?
Yes. So I mean, it's kind of a long article. I highlighted just the part that says they're getting sued. But yes, they went in. They, like I said, they saw the smoke detector in the hallway. They labeled it, both the building inspector and the appraiser labeled it as carbon monoxide. 18 months later, the married couple that bought the house passed away because of carbon monoxide. I mean, she left her car running in the garage, but still. So I only brought that to illustrate, take pity on your appraisers that's out there. It's making it subject to, it's only the lender that's asking that. But I have actually, since reading this article, I have actually amended my appraisals to state, if it doesn't say carbon monoxide, I'm not stating whether it's there or not. So there's only been one appraisal where they came back and said, you guys need to put a clearly labeled carbon monoxide detector in. But yeah, so I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. I mean, I don't know. I know that realtors have all kinds of liability as well.
That's just scary.
So I don't know if that's part of the listing agreements and stuff that you're gonna have all that stuff in there, but.
Yeah, it is a requirement. That doesn't mean that
Yeah.
everyone necessarily does it correctly, but it is a
Right,
requirement.
no, I get it,
Yeah.
as the appraiser, it's, especially the last few years when we're doing, 15 appraisals a week. You're just kind of like, oh yeah, I've seen that one before, that's a combo, and you mark it off, well. These people are being sued for a wrongful death, so I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a tragedy that those people died, and obviously. It's
They want to
unfortunate
place
that some
blame,
professionals
culpability, yeah.
were sued.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an interesting article. And I think it has the link. Yeah, it's the link on the bottom of every
We'll
page.
definitely
in
check
case
that out.
you want to share it with colleagues or anything.
I'll be sharing that at our next team meeting for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you can email the link out, or I can email it to you after.
Yeah.
So that was like the one thing I wanted to get off my chest. Like, isn't that crazy?
That is
that
crazy.
They got sued.
Yeah,
Both
it's
the
a
home
litigious-
inspector.
Litigious society, though. I'm kind of surprised. Thinking about it now, I'm surprised that hasn't happened sooner. You know what I
Right,
mean? Like,
exactly.
yeah.
Yep.
Since that went into effect, and this is the first time we're hearing a lawsuit.
Yeah,
kind of crazy.
definitely. So,
More reason to plug your little ones in and.
Yeah, so
Get it there.
and I
Leave
usually
it
do
there.
I like the plugins. I usually keep some of those in my car for,
I
just that
do.
reason, but
there you go.
could you take us through kind of like, what the, sorry about that. Can you take us through what your initial process is when you're going to appraise a property? And
Sure.
I'm gonna give you two scenarios on this, so two scenarios.
Sure.
One is single family home here in Brentwood, Jasmine Place, my house right off Sand Creek in Fairview, okay?
Montalena.
No, it's on right behind Resurrection Ministries.
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah.
corner
Oh,
right there,
Jasmine Place,
Right? Okay, you know where that
okay.
is. So that's your traditional, pretty cookie cutter, whatever.
Track.
The other one is Thule Lane out in Knightson on 5 acres. So what is your approach to both? And the reason why I'm asking about the Thule Lane one is because I'm just going to tell you that there aren't any comps for the last 9 months.
Is it
So we'll
19
start with Jasmine.
1950?
Something, yeah.
Thule Lane?
Yeah.
I used it as a comp. I think I used it as a comp. Is it in contract?
No, it was one I sold a while back. So that's why I'm
Oh,
wondering.
no,
Yeah,
this is just from a few weeks ago.
yeah.
So you mean the appraisal process?
Because we've got some new agents here, and so I think it's beneficial for them to kind of hear like how that happens. Because basically, they're mostly representing buyers at this point, and they go out, they show the property, they get them into contract, and then it's kind of like what happens next, right?
Sure.
So some lenders are like, okay, here's what you can expect. Your appraiser's going to go out. This is how it's going to work. This is what they're going to be looking for. Others don't give you any information at all. So I think it's just beneficial for them to hear what the process is like, so they know what's going on behind the scenes.
Sure. Yeah, so we received the appraisal order from the lender or the AMC
Which is an appraisal management
company.
company.
It's like a middleman.
It's not the movie theater.
Right, no, not the movie theater. No free movie passes here. And then it'll have instructions to contact and typically. Even though the listing agent is going to be granting access, if it has the buyer's agent, I usually call. Just to check in with you guys, say, hey, I'm gonna go out there. I can reach out to the listing agent if you want, or you can call them. And then schedule a time. Right now, if Jasmine Place came in, I would be like, awesome, I could see it this afternoon and get it back to you tomorrow because I don't have anything else going on.
Which is it's such a shift from a couple of years
I
ago. You're like, I'm
know.
struggling to get this done in 8 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Usually, well, in peak COVID, I think I had like about a 2-week turnaround.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe 5 to 10 days. Yeah, 5 to 10 days. So I was going out for one long inspection day on Monday and Tuesday, and then just taking the rest of the week to complete everything.
Write the
And
reports. Yeah.
then starting back on Monday with tenant appraisal inspections. But in any case, so the first thing we would do is print out the listing, the property information, and look at the contract. We're not, it's weird because they say that we're supposed to be 100% impartial, yet they put the purchase price right on the order. right?
And
And
they're on behalf of the buyer.
right,
in a
right.
sense, yeah.
Not like back like 15 years ago, they would have, even on refinances, they would have the OEV, the owner's estimated value, which is the number that they want you to hit for the loan, right? That's the number that they want you to hit. In a purchase situation, it's the same. I mean, as appraisers, we want everybody to get the home that they want to move in. When I bought a home, I wanted that appraisal to hit no matter what, even if it was worth 10,000 less than what I was paying. I wanted, so we look at the contract and then we look at the comps. And Monica knows this term because I always say it. Any appraisal question, the answer is it depends, because it depends on the market, it depends on everything, but it depends on the appraiser a lot of times. Because it's kind of a fine line. If I'm not seeing really great comps, when I call the agent, I may, because you don't want the agent to do, I don't want the agent to do my job for me. But at the same time, if I'm not perfect, I'm not, sometimes I miss the perfect comp. It's true. So sometimes I'll ask, especially the listing agent, what sales were you looking at when you priced this?
Exactly.
That's kind of the code word without saying, hey, I don't see a lot of comps.
I don't know that I see this value. How did you get here? Literally, how did you get here?
Right. And some agents, well, I mean, you guys know how it goes. When you deal with appraisers, there's some appraisers that are great to deal with and some that aren't. It's the same thing from the appraiser side. It's like, is the conversation productive or not? So yeah, I'll kind of interview either the selling agent or the listing agent, kind of get a feel, how they're feeling about the property. Some people will be like, hey, I know we're 50,000 high on this. Like, my buyers really want this house, or my sellers wouldn't allow me to list it for less than this. So it happens.
Yeah.
And then so we schedule. One thing from the appraiser's perspective, especially if there's going to be any issues with value, and I'm sure Monica teaches this because I've seen her out at properties, is try to meet the appraiser there if at all possible. Just that way, if anything is not weird, but it's just, if anything comes up, we can kind of talk about it face to face. There's nothing worse than saying, oh, go by there anytime, and then you go by there and you can tell that it's listed at the top of the market. And then if there's an issue with value or comps, it's like, well, I mean, or even it could be like if it's an FHA and there's a safety issue, we could have talked about it right there. You could have advised what your plan is. Are you going to have your handyman out the next day, or are you going to wait till you get the appraisal back? Kind of those things that kind of help move the deal along. I mean, from my perspective, I think it would help move the deal along.
Can I just interrupt you just for a second to address, because not everyone really knows so on the appraisal, you're looking for minimum standards for health and safety,
FHA.
correct? So you want to talk a little bit about what that means and the difference between that one, VA, and conventional on appraisal.
Sure. Well, I've applied for VA, but they're pretty picky and they only like one appraiser to work like multiple counties. So I haven't got on the
Really?
panel yet.
That's weird.
Yeah.
So
And then I talked to
something-
realtors and they're like, it took 2 weeks to get the VA appraiser out here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I apply every year and they say that they're full. So
One appraiser for 2 counties
Right.
is insane.
I don't know if you guys know Tosh, but he's a VA appraiser, like Tosh, Tosh and Associates. He does karate over by Chapala,
Oh, really?
the karate studio.
Interesting.
That
I
guy's
did
an
not
appraiser.
know. I did not know that. Huh.
Yeah, he's an appraiser. It's
Learn
right next to
something new every day.
But again, like in light of this lawsuit, like at least me personally, I'm kind of more aware of the minimum property standards that Monica's referenced. FHA has minimum property standards. They're a little bit more stringent than, well, I guess in practical experience, they feel a lot more stringent than conventional.
Yes.
But even conventional, they want to know if there's anything that's a safety concern with the property. So it could be as little, something as small as, I'm looking for outlets. but
Yeah, broken outlet cover or
Outlet
missing one.
covers.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when I first started, I didn't necessarily call all of those out, but since I had kids, it's like, no, that's a safety hazard because kids, they will put their hands in that electrolyte.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, for sure. So
Yeah.
those are the big, like the appraiser is we're performing a cursory inspection. So it's basically a walkthrough. And if we see the missing outlet covers, FHA is big on outside of structure being painted or not. Like sometimes if you're, what do they call them? The fascia boards on the side of the house,
Dry rot and stuff, peeling paint.
they could be dry rot or like, yeah, peeling paint or just like worn paint.
Mhm.
And sometimes, especially out here with the sun, the paint will just come off and then it's not painted. According to the FHA director, who I took a class with, they basically, their guideline is if it's not painted when the borrower moves in, we figure it's never going to be painted and it's going to fall on top of that. So,
It's a
right.
pretty large leap, but
That's,
yeah.
they figure it's not going to be painted ever.
Yeah.
So technically, we're supposed to, even like the door sills underneath sliders that are usually just worn and not painted, like, if
Super common.
it's average maintenance, that's not going to be painted. Technically, we're supposed to call that out for FHA.
So what are the minimums for FHA? So
Everything has to be painted.
Yeah.
On the outside of the home, even sheds. That's right.
even
Wooden
sheds.
sheds are supposed to be painted again, because they figure if it's wood.
Yeah.
And it's not painted,
It's gonna
be
degrade.
falling down
Yeah.
and hurt someone, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So
So-
again, take pity on your poor appraiser that
Yeah.
makes your deal subject to painting the shed. This is what we've been instructed to do
Right.
directly from FHA. Like I said, I took a class in LA and their West Coast headquarters are in Santa Ana. And they came down and gave the class. It was the director of the West Coast FHA and their chief appraiser presented this class. And so I'm giving direct quotes here.
Yeah.
So as the appraiser, we're kind of in the middle, but so FHA minimum property requirements. The paint, we want to make sure, or they have us check all the utilities. We're supposed to check all the appliances. We're supposed to run the dishwasher and the garage door, but
I didn't know that.
we're supposed to
I
run.
I knew
all
like the
appliances.
stove and the
Flush
heat
the
and air.
toilets.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know about
Yeah. Some
Not either.
Huh.
some appraisers carry like electrical outlet testers and stuff. In fact, it's funny because I have an FHA appraisal after this FHA inspection. So yeah, minimum property requirements. We're supposed to run all the appliances. I used to test garage doors, except I did one in Brentwood, and I hit the thing to run the garage door, and the manual lock was engaged, and
Oops.
it damaged the door. Luckily, it was an REO, and they were looking. No, they're cool. No, I took care of it. I repaired it. In fact, at the time, it was before my uncle retired, but he had a garage door company. And so I called him and he had someone out the next day. They happened to have a panel in the back of the shop. They brought it out, hooked it up, you know, I think I paid like $200, but I had it repaired. It was like the wrong color, but scenario, and they were like, as long as it's working,
Yeah.
it's fine. Don't. So anyway, I don't test garage doors anymore.
Understandably so.
But if you get an appraiser that does all that, that's that's what they're supposed to do.
What about the
So,
door coming from the garage into the house? Has to be
I don't know what
self-closing.
you're talking about.
Mm.
Has to
I've
be
never
self-
called that out.
It's supposed to be self-closing, correct?
A self-closing and a fire rated door and a fire rated door. I actually had one a month ago
Uh-huh.
that I called. Yeah, that one was FHA as well. Yeah, it was, you could tell it was like a bedroom door going out to the garage. And because usually it'll have like a label and it'll feel heavier and it's supposed to be have a self-closing.
Right.
spring.
That thing off because it was driving me nuts.
That's what a lot of
Shoo,
people
boom,
do.
shoo, boom, all the
Yeah.
kids
Yeah.
coming through the house. I
Yeah.
just pulled the middle thing out.
Yeah.
A lot of people
Well-
do. So my point being, the reason why I was bringing up the minimum standards is because anytime that I've got a property that I'm listing or I've got the buyer, when I do my agent visual inspection disclosure, which is usually early on, I look to see that the outlet covers are there. I usually carry some of those in my car. I make sure there's a carbon. You can do the plug-in in a hallway, no big deal. I make sure that there's smokes in each room, right? And if it's a 2-story, there has to be a carbon on both floors, right? One for each level.
Yep.
And then I look at obvious things. If there's a broken window pane, stuff like that's going to be a health and safety for FHA. Conventional, I don't really see people call that much, but
For the broken window.
yeah, I don't, just
It
depends.
depends if it's a
It's not in the
safety
glass.
hazard.
It's a safety
Seal.
hazard. No, like
glass.
a glass pane would be a safety, a broken
Yeah.
seal is a little bit different story. So I look at all those things and make sure, whether it's my listing or not, that those things are gonna be remedied before the appraiser walks in, because now the appraiser comes, he's here to do his job. He's got 15 to do today, right? He's walking the property, and the last thing that he wants to do is have to take pictures of 5 different freaking things that should have been done before he walked in, and now he has to come out and do a re-inspect.
And that
Right?
costs-
And
yes,
that's gonna cost the
right?
buyer an extra fee, of course, because he isn't
Yeah.
free, you know what I mean? So those sorts of things are things to be aware of and that people very rarely think about,
Yeah.
right? Okay, sorry.
And
to
a quick
interrupt.
fix.
It's a
Yep.
quick fix, yeah, sorry to
Is it
interrupt.
the
but
same
yeah.
with an REO?
So the REO, most of the stuff that I had was conventional and cash, but the bottom line is it's the same thing. It's not like they're exempt from having those safety minimum standards, period. So in my REO days, I did a lot of that on my own dime because it was gonna be way too complicated to get them to get an asset preservation person out there to do this and do that, and it was just dumb, right? So I would just do it, just have it taken care of. So,
There you go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else
Any-
that an agent should bring besides outlet covers and carbon monoxide things?
Smokes, but
Smokes.
yeah, the smoke detectors, batteries, batteries.
Well, don't they don't want,
Can't
they don't
test
want
them.
those anymore, right? The ones that have batteries, they're like they're supposed to like.
No, that's just for the backup. So the batteries
Oh.
are meant so that it's a plug-in. The batteries are meant that if the power fails, the batteries are there to still continue to operate that detector.
Oh, I see.
So that if there was an issue, nothing happens. So that's what those are for.
Usually
There is a
9 volt,
backup.
right? 9 volt?
I think they're usually 9
Yeah.
volts.
What about
So-
pool alarms?
I was just gonna say, what about gates?
And
for-
are we talking FHA or normal or?
He's all, oh my gosh. Now he's like, what have you gotten into? Pandora's box? That's why you're here,
Yes.
Kevin.
Right, no. it's fine.
Depends.
I mean, I think we call it scope creep in the industry because they're asking us to provide a value. And now, what are we talking about for the first 30 minutes of our meeting today? Oh, what are the safety things? And, and we're not, the appraiser is not an expert. I would say the building inspector is more of an expert than the appraiser. But yet they have us checking off all these boxes and stuff. So that's why I shook my head when you mentioned the pool.
Well, I mean, if you're looking for that stuff, typically just because I know better, but some people don't think about it.
So I had like a 6-month stretch where,
We have a listing coming right now
yeah,
that the pool is like 5 feet outside the house. Like you open the door and there it is.
I think that's probably fine.
And there's a
As
slide
long as it's permanent.
right there.
Yeah.
Coming out of the kitchen. and they don't have an alarm on the door, they don't have a gate, they don't have a pool fence, they have nothing. So I feel like they probably should have at least the alert on the door, the slider, right, before
Yes.
I put it on the market.
However, like I said, I'm a little bit, just as an appraiser for 20 years, I've been appraising 20 years. I'm a little exasperated with the scope of work,
Yes.
and I've chosen to exclude that from my appraisals. So, but I do have a comment saying this house has a pool. I don't know if it was built to code. I don't know if it's currently to code. If FHA or an investor or Fannie Mae or anybody that's reading my appraisal has concerns, they should consult a licensed pool contractor.
Perfect.
And that's what I would say as a listing. I don't know what the scope of work is and the listing agreement, but if you want to, if it's a huge concern, I would say just get a licensed pool contractor out there. Pool inspection. I mean, you guys do pool inspections sometimes, right? That's the other thing. FHA expects us to run the pool equipment, and I'm like, man, I'm not touching.
No.
I'm not touching the pool equipment. Right. Not touching the pool equipment.
I don't blame you.
So yeah, I just say I'm not an expert. I mean, I used to call out, like, because I know that the gates are supposed to be self-closing, the gate that leads directly to the pool. You're supposed to have the alarms, but again, I'm not an expert. And I mean, I guess a self-closing gate isn't that big of a repair, but I generally, as a rule, if I can avoid making the appraisal subject to alterations to the property, I avoid it.
Okay.
So they're welcome to, as far as reporting the appraisal, like I said, I say if you guys have concerns, you should consult a pool contractor. If they get the pool inspection and they come back and they want me to make it subject to a pool inspection, that's fine, but the underwriting should be able to clear that without the appraiser going back to the property.
Okay, so you're not
They
gonna
should-
hold up your appraisal if there is no gate, there is no
Correct.
fence, there is
Never.
no baby.
Exactly.
It's not like a health and safety thing, exactly.
The
I was
thing
under the
is,
assumption it
like-
was,
There might be
but- okay,
some appraisers that.
Some appraisers are gonna
So it
ask you to
depends.
install that. Yeah,
Exactly.
it depends.
alright.
Because I don't want to, if I say, oh, you guys need a self-closing gate, but I don't say the alarm on the door, like, I don't know, is it all the doors? Is it the front door also, the interior
Got it.
garage door? I don't know. But if I say, you guys need the self-latching gate, the reader could interpret that as this house has a pool, all it needs is, because Kevin
Yep.
has now represented himself as knowing whether that's an appropriate safety item or not. So someone could construe that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to pools, but I don't. So now I don't say anything. So,
Yeah, I get you there.
Yeah.
It's perfect. And you did
Yeah.
mention underwriting. So what he's referring to is the loan aspect, right? So on every loan, it'll go through an underwriting process. And so if there's items in the appraisal that are considered health and safety minimum standards that don't exist, oftentimes, in most cases, especially FHA, they will require that those items be met to today's, methods, and
Prior to
then
funding.
prior to funding the loan. So
Yeah.
again, why it's a good idea to be walking the property and making sure those things get taken care of, because otherwise you're down to the wire and you're thinking you're going to get loan approval and loan documents, and they're like, oh yeah, we can't do that because this and this on the appraisal. So answer this question, and then we'll because we've gone down a rabbit hole now, but
yeah, that's fine.
we've gone down a rabbit hole, but
Thanks, Papa.
I did
know,
have a note.
but it's good though.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
definitely to know.
I know. So let's let him make a comment on the broken windows, and then I have another thing to add.
What I was gonna say is, FHA is pretty particular. If there's a
Why are we only talking about FHA?
broken window,
Mute,
like
Misty.
they want everything, they're focused on everything's working, everything's fine. That's what we want. So if I have a dual pane window, it could have been broken and then the owner, cleared all the glass from that one broken pane, but now we only have a one pane window. FHA has basically instructed us to make it subject to replacing that window or that window pane. For conventional, if there's not broken glass there, but it's only the one pane, I personally would not call it out because it doesn't seem like a safety thing.
Right.
So there's as Monica mentioned before, the minimum property requirements that FHA requires, they would require, no, we're gonna insure this home, we want it to have both panes. Conventional, is there broken glass? No, okay, cool. It may
Yeah,
have one.
exactly.
That's up to the buyer and seller to negotiate or the buyer knows what they're getting. So in fact, and if it was all cleared out, I might not even notice it, honestly, because we're doing a walkthrough.
So as a good agent, I mean, what I'm hearing is you could be proactive with a lot of these things.
Yes.
It
I
couldn't
think so.
hurt
Yeah, that's kind of
to
what
get
Monica's getting at.
the pool thing fixed and all of this stuff. It could hurt.
Pool's gonna add to your
Yeah, the pool. is
cost.
gonna be extensive.
Because
Well, I mean, like a
But-
gate that's self-closing. That's just
Yeah,
a
you could have a
hinge,
nephew or
right?
any-
You could
But
have
it
somebody.
go out
depends
there.
on the layout of the pool and the house, because they have nothing now there to protect kids from falling in.
Mm,
There's
Yeah.
entry on both sides of the yard, there's 2 sliding doors that lead out to the
mhm,
patio, so they would have to drill holes in the concrete.
Right.
That could be pricey.
sounds like my house.
I know.
We don't have a self-closing gate.
I don't have
I,
any of
I mean, I just have like an above ground pool, but we should have all that safety stuff. So
Yeah.
if we had it permitted, they would have done all that.
Question here, Monica.
Okay.
So it's not about FHA, but recently had an appraisal. And I just happened to be at the house when the appraiser showed up and he told me something about ACE, the automated collateral evaluation. What exactly, like where so if there's a PDR on the property plus the ACE, like the appraisal can be waived. And I guess there was appraisal waivers up until 4 months ago.
Why was an appraiser advertising appraisal waivers? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, he didn't advertise it. I actually asked him a question and I guess it opened up this because right now we have a lot of homes going over asking. This particular house was 40,000 over asking. I pulled comps myself and I did tell my buyer, be prepared to possibly come out of pocket. The house did come in at value, but it raised a question for me, like, what exactly is that? Last year I did an appraisal waiver, but then this was something so new to me.
So I'm actually not familiar with those specific programs that he referenced or that you referenced here. However, they have very complicated algorithms, to get the appraisal waiver and programs that feed like automated valuation systems that feed into that algorithm. I'm sure it has to do with the loan application as well. So credit score, income, all that stuff, plus the automated valuation of the property. And they probably merge all that data together and see if they could do an appraisal waiver.
So it's almost like the
Oh.
bank saying we're willing to take a risk based on the buyer's profile.
Right.
Mm.
Or the house as well, but they can do a drive-by. Sometimes the lenders will allow a drive-by. If
The appraiser said that they don't allow that anymore.
Oh,
You
okay.
have to physically come in and at least take pictures of the property.
Interesting.
I don't
Okay,
know.
so next I want to keep us on track. I want to be mindful of your time. Okay, so
Yeah, no
back
worries.
to Jasmine. You've like done the initial walkthrough, you know what you're dealing with. How far back do you go looking for comps? Like in today's market, last year's market, it's going to be the same answer, but yeah.
It depends.
It depends. How far back do you generally go
I think
looking for
maybe-
comparables?
Right. I think
Track home, Jasmine
The-
Place is like cookie cutter. You're gonna
sure.
find those all day.
The answer is it does depend. However, in the scenario, so obviously we want for comps, the appraiser, underwriting, everybody wants to see like, hey, the house next door is the same, or the house across the street is the same floor plan. It sold last week at our contract price. Perfect. that's a done deal. Maybe that's when they order the appraisal waiver that you were
Yeah,
talking about.
maybe able to do that.
But basically, I guess the or not the formula would be like, if there's a lack of comps, the more of the lack of comps there are, the
Further back you have to go.
we'll go
Yeah.
back, and the further we'll expand.
Yeah.
Out from the area. So, like sometimes it will be a case where maybe the most recent sale in the development is 4 months ago. So you would grab that one and include it in the appraisal, and then you could expand further out and find something more recent, and you kind of balance the two. And then, you would do you're doing a market analysis to see if there's any change in the market from 4 months ago. You adjust for that because you have the indicator from this week, from this current market, and then you just kind of include it. But yeah, unfortunately, the answer is it depends. But as far as like underwriting, and we say this underwriting a lot because those are the people that
It's the
say
end all
thumbs
be
up
all.
or
Yep.
thumbs down.
Mm.
This appraisal's good, this appraisal's bad, send it back. And underwriting is getting really strict these days. However, they want to see 3 closed sales within 3 months.
Yep, there we go.
If right,
Within 3 months.
so if you've got your buyer or even your seller and you're trying to formulate a list price, you can kind of do your own comp search in the MLS, just start with the subject development. In MLS, you can draw a paragon.
Yep. Polygon, yep.
Polygon, yeah.
Yeah.
It's paragon. Within paragon, you draw a polygon.
Yeah.
And yeah, you want to look for underwriting is looking, and in turn, appraisers are looking for 3 closed sales within the last 90 days, preferably within the last 30 days.
So right now, that's a challenge, right?
Correct.
Yes,
Yeah.
However,
low
So-
inventory.
it is a challenge, but he's gonna report on his appraisal, whether it's a stable market, whether it's an escalating market, whether it's a declining market, correct?
You're leading the witness. This is good. I like
Yeah, no, I know, yeah.
it.
Things into account at all.
I'm sorry, do
Do
we
you
take?
take the pendings into account at all?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Wanna
I mean,
escalate.
He will-
during
He will-
COVID, I
he'll
call
call him.
every pending
Yeah.
sale.
Yeah.
Okay,
If the market's, so she was kind of referring to stable,
yes.
increasing,
I get it.
decrease. If things are stable, going back the last 6 months,
Mhm.
I might have that comp that was in the neighborhood that sold across the street for 4 months. That might be our number 1 comp because it's the same floor plan. And if everything is stable, it's a good comp. So
Yeah,
underwriting is going to make their own determination on whether they agree with me that it's a stable market or not.
Mhm.
And every appraiser will include analysis in the appraisal, usually on it's called a 1004 MC. If you ever read an appraisal, it'll be at the end of the appraisal.
MC is market condition.
Yep, 1004 market condition addenda.
Because we've been having our agents pay attention to the pending sales and how many offers on those. How many offers were written on those properties to kind of figure out our value on our,
Right, right,
our next.
right.
Yeah.
And
thing.
yes, I will call. I mean, it's not everybody's dream to just call real estate agents all day and be like, where are you guys at on the contract? In an upward market, everybody was cool. Like, if you're below contract, well, in my experience, the agents that I have spoken to, sometimes if they're below contract, they're like, we're a little bit below. If they're above, they're like, yeah, we're 15,000 over. It's great. So, but yes, pending sales can have an effect, but underwriting wants the majority of the value to be based on a closed sale.
Yeah.
So
So there will be some weight for the pending, but it's closed sales that are most important. And I wanted to add on to that. Be nice to your appraisers. Honestly, every time I get a call from an appraiser, I always call them back and I always be as forthcoming as I can be, because we're all in the market together, right? It's all a team effort. Unless your client has specifically said you can't give any information to anyone, which they don't say, like they don't do that. Give me info. I just had someone call me on a fixer I had in Santa Ramona that I've got in contract. And the appraiser's like, man, I'm having a tough time. Everything in the neighborhood was super, it was super upgraded. And
Oh,
mine was a
right.
total fixer. He was like, I'm struggling with comps. When's it closing? I'm going to need this one, right? But it wasn't really going to help him a whole lot because it wasn't fixed. Like it didn't compare to anything. So
Mhm.
actually that leads me to the next question. Forget the property out on Tully Lane. I want to use a different example because this one was definitely a challenge. I had property on, I think it was 4th Street in downtown Brentwood.
Okay.
So remember, all those homes are relatively old, right? The adjacent area, if you were doing like a radius or anything, you're going to end up in Guerin Ranch, which is not comparable, right?
Mhm.
So this particular property completely remodeled top to bottom, like plumbing, electrical, everything, right? So when my client was looking at that, we went to go write an offer, like I had no basis for comps whatsoever. Now the agent is someone I know really well. We're actually super good friends. And I was like, how the hell did you get your list price? How are we going to substantiate? Like, I get where you're going with it, but how are we going to substantiate that on an appraisal? So like, it was a big
Right,
deal.
because you're looking at it from the buyer trying to qualify.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out like realistically, what's this going to appraise at? Like we were having a tough time. And so when the appraiser called me and was like, hey, how did you guys establish this? I'm like, that's a very good question. Really hoping you can help with that because I don't have anything like for a year, an entire year in that whole area. I had not one comparable that would even support anything. So I don't remember now. It's been many, many years. I don't remember what comps he used to determine the value. But so what would you do in that situation?
So what I've done in the past is, yeah, if it's like because downtown Brentwood's like you said, a defined.
Very defined
Space.
area. It's limited.
What you can do, even if you have to go back 2 years, you can go back 2 years and take, as long as you find one that's been renovated, right?
Gotcha.
Or similar in condition.
Gotcha.
Even from 2 years ago, you can kind of take that and compare it to other homes that haven't been updated.
Okay.
Now, you can't base your entire value on that,
Right.
but you can use it as supporting evidence, I guess.
To support your
basically.
intended
Right.
value.
Yeah,
Okay.
so like if I was the listing agent and I was trying to quantify that, I guess, I mean, I've done that, I've actually physically done that before where I could take the high sale from 2 years ago and or maybe you have like 1 or 2 that were renovated, the rest were not renovated, and you can get a percentage.
Okay.
Well, these 2 homes were renovated and they sold for 23%
More.
more.
Okay.
And then you say, well, we'll be conservative, 15, 18%
Gotcha. Okay.
more than what's on the market right now.
Yeah. So I know the answer to this, but do you find in that type of situation it's helpful if the seller has provided like a list of upgrades and what they paid for that?
Not always, but
Depends.
sometimes.
I would think that would be helpful, yeah. No?
It's helpful. Sometimes it's the attitude with which the list is given to the.
What's the best attitude for that?
Well, I'm just saying, like.
It's a job.
He's got kids, maybe it's movie theater tickets,
know,
AMC movie theater tickets. Yes, it's scoop.
Oh, man, that came off kind of bad.
It's all.
I'm supposed to be impartial.
You're supposed to be impartial.
Totally impartial.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, like, I literally was in Martinez, and the person was like, he spent like $15,000 on this chicken coop in the backyard. Okay.
That
And
is
so-
not.
He was like, check out this $15,000 chicken coop. I'm like, cool. I don't know what to do with that. So, but I don't know if if he or she is expecting to recoup that, they shouldn't be, but maybe they are. So but yeah, as far as list of upgrades, it's definitely helpful. Sometimes I feel like the client is expecting like,
Full value
Like-
of what they spent.
An
Right.
equivalent
Yeah.
value for what they spent.
and they're not.
Right? Because they expect if they put these upgrades, they're gonna get a huge refund.
Right.
on that.
Yeah.
And likely they're not going to get that. But if it's an extensive list, it will speak to the quality of the upgrades.
Yeah,
Sometimes just based on the price of like the kitchen remodel, you can tell the difference between a $20,000, oh, you did flooring and counters, or if it's 75, then, you know, I mean, you can tell that visually as well, but I'm just saying, and it also speaks to like the overall condition / maintenance upkeep of the property. So I would say, yes, it helps.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to mention, I guess, whether you're if you're meeting the appraiser out there and you think there's can be any issue with value at all, it's okay to give the appraiser comps. It really is. Some appraisers will be grumpy about it.
some won't use them.
Some appraisers will be like, you said hello, I said hello, I don't want to talk to you. Okay. I've heard agents tell me that they've had that experience. Me personally, my view is you guys go on the tour every week. You've been in the home I'm appraising, you've been in a lot of the comps that I'm going to use. So you're a resource for me as the appraiser. Now, you're advocating for your client, which that's your number one job. My number one job is to be impartial, but I need all the data that I can get. So I would say, even though maybe you've had uncomfortable situations handing comps, I would say no pressure, you know, this is where we were thinking, kind of.
Yeah.
And
Box of chocolate.
the important one advice I gave, you remember John Canning?
Mm-hmm.
He said this advice helped out a lot, so I'll share it again. I don't mean to act like a sage, but he said, I advised him, I was like, you know, really, we're looking at the contract price. We want one comp that brackets is above the contract price and one that's below, and ideally one that's right at it, and then we can kind of adjust. So if I was in your shoes meeting the appraiser, that's what I would do. I'd be like, hey, here's the high sale. We know it's a little bit high. It's 300 square feet more, but it's got similar upgrades in the kitchen. This is kind of what we used. There's one that's a little bit lower, you know, it backs the railroad. I don't know, you know.
Yeah,
And that's kind of, and again, any appraiser that's confident will be confident in the comps that they select, but just knowing you guys have walked through the comps, it's good information to have for the appraiser. And I think that's okay. I mean, if you get someone that doesn't want to talk to you, that
happens.
That's
I mean, sometimes
not
people,
great.
I've had people say, yeah, or do you want to, I had one guy say to me did you want to do my job for me? And I was like, that's
Oh.
not what, and I was super nice, like very tactful. I'm like, that's not what this is about. You know,
Just try
you
to-
don't have to use them. And he ended up coming to value, but I was like, ooh,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was
See-
kind of rude. And I just kind of rolled with it. I'm like, hey, sorry, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of my appraisers, you know, appreciate that. Not your deal. Totally no big deal. And he didn't take the comps. And I was like, all right, I just
You could
kinda said-
probably say, you know.
yeah, I mean,
Is this helpful for you?
yeah, I just said that
really
I've had
appreciate that.
other
Yeah.
appraisers have really appreciated that. So I thought I'd pass it on, but if you don't want to use it.
if it helps, this is
Yeah.
where we were at.
This is kind of where we landed.
where we
The
came from.
next thing is, so we've only got about 10 minutes left, and I know this has been a question. So how do you establish value for solar?
Yay.
And you knew that question was coming. Because this is a big one right now. So
Yeah.
then, and there's two parts to this. There's owned solar and there's leased solar.
Right.
I would assume leased solar doesn't really provide an additional value, but
That's
owned
correct.
solar could.
Right.
And how do you how do you give any value, if anything, for that? Like, how does that determine? Depends. I know it depends.
Solar
But
is like the new pool.
yeah,
Everybody used to want to know what their pool is worth, or if I put a pool in,
10
is
to
10 to 20.
20, depending on hardscape,
Is
to
that
the
still your gauge for pool?
10 to 20. Is that so your gauge for pools roughly?
I have
For pools?
like exact model match, same development, same age, same house, just one has a pool, one doesn't. What's your scale on that?
It sometimes it works out to be 10 to 20,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it really does depend on the neighborhood. Like in Danville, it could be $75,000, right? If you're the only house in Danville that doesn't have the pool. you need a pool.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Up here, like in Garen Ranch, yeah, I'd say 10, 20, 25,000,
Okay.
just off the top of my head, just, I'm
Yeah,
not,
and
this
that's-
is not a quote.
Yeah, that's
But-
the number that you and I have talked about many times over the years and that I've kind of given value to. And especially when I was doing REOs, we had to account for that too. And so,
Right.
and
But-
people don't get the resale value they're looking for. I always tell
No.
people that you're gonna get the value in like the memories that you've created, but you're not getting it as when you
Right.
spend $150,000 on pool,
Yeah.
you're not getting that back. You're getting
Correct.
10 to 20
Yeah.
in general.
Or more, I mean, yeah,
It could be more, just depends,
as far as solar, I would have that similar conversation, like, you're getting a tax credit. You're saving every month.
Yeah.
When you go to sell your house, it may add some value. Whether it's a pool or the solar, what we're looking for as far as assigning, they call it, in the appraisal industry, it's called contributory value.
Gotcha.
Or real estate industry, contributory value, right? It contributes value. We really need two sales, one that has the pool or the solar and one that doesn't,
Mhm.
that are otherwise pretty similar. And that's a real world example of how the market reacted to that improvement.
Okay, got it. So it's kind of.
So,
lifetime.
and again, like if that's something that your clients are concerned about, you can kind of look for those comps in the neighborhood and pass them off to the appraiser, or even just, you can kind of do that. It's called a matched paired analysis. So it's like a technical term for just doing a quick analysis in your head of like you said, same floor plan, one has a pool, one doesn't.
Yep.
Be curious to see what they both sell for. So
Do you have like a ballpark at all for what the solar would be its own, like an average, like in this area?
So. Yeah, usually my typical adjustments have been $10,000 to $20,000.
The same thing, yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes it's only been 5,000. Sometimes I don't see. Like if I have those comps and I don't see a difference in the sales price between the ones that have solar and don't, sometimes I won't.
Which is
add value.
understandable because if
Okay.
it didn't like account for additional value,
Right.
how are you gonna, yeah,
Honestly, though, if like the seller or if it's a refinance and they're like telling me all about the solar, I'll usually say at least like bump it $5,000. Just be like,
To get
hey,
it- give them
awesome, cool, you got solar.
yeah.
So, yeah, but yeah, definitely leased solar does not contribute value. California was really pushing it like 3 or 4 years ago. They were literally instructing appraisers to give it value no matter what. I got a call from the state appraiser's office saying you did this one appraisal and you got a complaint because you didn't value solar and you need to value solar no matter what. And I was like, I didn't have any comps. What do you want me to, what value did you want me to,
Mhm.
Kevin? I'll say it again, you need to add value when there's
'Cause I
solar.
feel like that's a huge sliding scale, that.
It
how old
is.
The system is, how big
Yeah.
the system is.
Right.
And the age of the, what is it, the converter or
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, the,
there's a battery
transfer.
storage
Yeah.
system.
Yeah, it's-
Because I
Yeah,
heard in a
that's-
different class that comes into play to the age of that.
Right, that's the
power
battery
plant.
storage is gonna be the new incentive. They're gonna start offering credits for those.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the new thing. And then after that, it's gonna be heat pumps. Which is electric, furnace, electric heating. What was I gonna say? I forget.
Well, we've got 5 minutes left, so I wanted to open it up for quick Q&A. I want to be
Sure.
mindful of your time, make sure that we don't take up too much of it. We usually only give it an hour.
All good. I'm away from my tax desk.
Yeah, it's probably, yeah, it's a little relief,
Talking to
yeah.
the state.
Does anyone have any
Yeah.
questions for Kevin?
I have a question.
Yes,
So does if you go to a property and the neighbor has pot growing up over the fence, does that weigh in on
oh
your
my gosh.
appraisal?
It's funny because I just talked to a real estate agent yesterday that she said that they had an FHA appraisal. The fence had fallen down. There was a growing operation in the property next door, like you just said. She said that that particular appraiser made them repair the fence and somehow it was determined that the neighbors had to get rid of their pot plants.
Are you?
And I'm like,
serious?
if I was the
What?
buyer, I'd be like, hey, thanks a lot. Now I have an enemy
Right.
in my backyard, you know, because
Oh my
So-
God, that's crazy.
They must have been illegal then,
Crazy.
for them
Well-
to have to get rid of it.
I mean, because they're,
Like,
yeah,
too many
this
plants?
is anecdotal, so I don't.
Yeah, that's
but,
crazy.
like, yeah. So, my experience, I've only reported plants once in 20 years, 10 years. And that was when it was like the whole backyard. It was like irrigated, right? And I'm like, I don't know if they have a permit. This is what's happening. And you guys can ask the seller if it's permitted or whatever. And
so
actually-
was it the subject property that had the plants?
Yeah.
So that's different than the
Oh.
neighbor having the plants.
the neighbor, it's California. I don't mention it, you know, I had a cold that day. I couldn't smell anything. You know what I mean? Seriously, I mean it, and I've had people with I just look at it as bushes, you know, and vegetation.
Yeah,
Unless, like I said, if it's an operation irrigated, then that's the only time that I brought it up.
yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I did an appraisal in Modesto and rural Modesto. And the whole neighborhood, like someone or some people were growing. And I don't know, it's just kind of one of those things where if you bring it up, what is it going to accomplish for the buyer and the seller? You know what I mean? So I don't know, are there disclosures for surrounding properties that you guys have to?
I mean, you have to, you
as
have
a
to
listing
disclose
agent?
that, right? That's
You
something you would,
have
that
it.
is something you
I
would.
don't want to say no, if it's not, we don't have property, right? Good.
So if it's next,
California,
if it's
man.
next door, I have said this before. I did have a property a long time ago where the neighbor was growing and I could really smell it. And so I merely noted that there was a strong odor of vegetation next door, I think is how I stated it. I think, yeah, outside. Yeah. Yeah, I just said that I didn't say it was to the right or the left or behind. I just merely, I mentioned that there was a significant smell and I didn't use significant either, but I mentioned that there was a smell. Anything else? Anybody else have any other questions? About 1 minute left. No? Super good info. Always so appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
I
Thanks.
love it. Good stuff.
You guys have my cards. Feel free to give me a call.
Thank you.
If you have any, you know, hey, I got this one listing and because people, John Kenny moved to Texas, he still calls me. Hey, I have this one. Is the FHA appraiser gonna call this out? What do you think? And I'll just, you know, real quick, give them whatever.
It depends,
Nice.
yeah. Well, and we always
It's
laugh
seriously.
about that, but Kevin and I have talked so many times over the years about different situations. Like sometimes we'll just be like, hey, how are you? How are you? And then we'll just start talking like, what are you seeing? What are you seeing? We'll go down this rabbit hole talking about it, but
She'll
it's-
just text me. Hey, I got a house that backs a gas station. Is that good or bad? That's bad.
yeah. I did not ask that question. It wasn't exactly like that.
Not that,
Like
no.
I knew the question was,
What a fair.
what I wanted to know, was that going to detract from the appraiser's value? Is that I wanted to know. I was like, would you like say, oh, it's worth 10% less
Yeah.
because of that? So that was actually the
So what's
question.
the
but
answer to that?
I don't remember what the answer
Depends.
was.
Gotta have the comps. Gotta have the
Full
comps.
circle.
Yeah,
Right?
Usually I would try to find maybe a house in the same area. If I can't find one that backs the gas station, one that backs a busy road,
yeah,
a 4-lane, like Main Street or something like that. That was on Main Street.
yeah. That was on Fall Lane. So it
Fall
was right.
Lane.
Yeah. So it was back to that gas station, but the
Right.
gas station had a car wash. That was the real issue. So I was like, there's noise from the car wash, from the washing and then the drying, right? It was loud. So that was, yeah.
I didn't mean to make light of your.
Oh, no,
question
it's
when I
totally
said good or
fine.
bad.
It's totally fine.
I was just trying to go through
You know, totally fine.
Super basic question.
the. Sure, yes.
Because I'm not even an agent. I'm curious. So you come in through the bank, right?
We're hired by the bank.
So we
Or a third party.
couldn't, if we were an agent, you can't request.
No, well, here, but
Correct.
wait a minute.
We
Okay,
used
so
to.
that, we didn't talk about this, but it's worth talking about. There's a panel. So
Yeah.
every lender has like a panel of appraisers.
Choose from.
They spit it out and somebody picks it up, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So
Kevin,
The-
there's gonna be something coming out.
the
Like,
reason, I know,
Yeah, no, I've got a couple brokers that'll call, loan brokers that'll call me and say,
hey, I want you to take this one.
yeah, I've got one in Oakley. It's gonna be coming through whatever AMC.
So you'd have to use those loan brokers in order. to
Okay.
use it. We could give you a
Okay.
heads up, or a loan broker give you a heads up,
Right,
and you
right.
can keep an eye out.
Yes.
Like-
Who's your loan brokers? I know, right?
Yeah.
Empire Loans, Preferred Rate, Supreme Lending.
Okay.
Those are the kind of the ones that I've been working with recently.
Okay.
And
So-
do you have a lockbox
But-
to access and let yourself in, or do you
Yeah.
need, okay?
Yep.
'Cause some do and some don't, so I always wanna ask.
I wouldn't want to be the appraiser that doesn't have super access.
Mm.
I've had that for years. I have it in, I have a MLS membership in San Joaquin in
Mhm.
Metro List, so.
That's good to know, cause
So
that
my
makes you
sup-
more valuable to us sometimes.
But we're
Right,
gonna be
that's-
there anyway.
I would
Yeah.
recommend that. If you guys have listings in stock,
With all
or
of
anything,
our stuff. Okay.
just get a super for Metro List. That's
Yeah.
what I would recommend. Yeah.
Yeah, super good information. And he means it when he says you can call him too.
Yeah.
And if he's not busy, he'll call you back and rap with you about it, whatever it is you see.
Yeah,
It's-
definitely.
Rap too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, super cool.
Yeah, embarrass my teenagers all the time.
Are agents allowed to take you to lunch?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
I didn't know if that, you know.
No,
if
okay,
that's
so
like a,
yeah,
you
so
know,
there's,
kinda-
no, I mean, there's, so,
Is that a code?
there's
Just
rest-
about
there's-
specific property.
yeah, there's
Or
RESPA violations for like title companies. They're not supposed to take an agent out because that's like trying to steer the business,
Right.
which is stupid. But you used to be able to go and have a cup of coffee with your title rep.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to really do that now. Or you
Right.
can go, but they can't pay. So
Title company?
yeah, it's
My
gotten out of control. You can
Oh,
you could have lunch or something with them, but they're not allowed to pay. Yeah, that's,
Cause we steer all our buyers out.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
what Melanie says all the time with me.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Okay, ladies, I'm gonna sign you off over
I
here.
did not know that.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, thank you very much. Appreciate it.